Imagine a world where people are actually comparing Steph Curry, the best shooter in history, to Andrew Drummond. It's hard to believe, but some are matching superstars with players who are labeled as role players, just there to do the tough work near the basket. This is the reality we're facing.
We're not talking about Caitlin Clark before Angel Reese walked up to her, did this, and pointed to the ring.
How can anyone appear on national television and seriously claim that no one was discussing Caitlin Clark? She led her league in both points and assists before her big game against Angel Reese in the 2023 championship. If you think that's outrageous, I recently saw a tweet saying both Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark deserve the Rookie of the Year award. This was said despite Caitlin clearly outperforming Angel in nearly every stat, winning 3 out of their 4 rookie matchups, and leading her team to the playoffs while Angel's team struggles at the bottom of the conference. In their most recent game, Caitlin scored an impressive 31 points and dished out 12 assists, while Angel seemed more focused on padding her stats. Folks, there's something wrong in how the media is handling this. We can't fairly compare these two players. It just doesn't work. In this video, I'm here to clarify that Caitlin Clark is a key reason we're going to see great things for the WNBA.
My bills at all. I don't even think that pays one of my bills. Literally. I'm trying to think of like my rent for where I stay at. Yo! I'm living beyond my means!
Before we get into their differences on the court, let's first talk about what's happening off the court. Recently, during the offseason, Angel Reese stirred up some buzz on social media by claiming that the WNBA doesn't pay her enough, pointing out that her $8,000 monthly rent isn't covered. She seemed to laugh it off, bragging about other ways she makes money and showing off her earnings. That kind of attitude can come across as insensitive to the vast majority of people out there.
I'm living beyond my means.
This kind of behavior doesn't help improve the image of the WNBA, which is already facing challenges. On the other hand, Caitlin Clark, who recently signed a historic $28 million deal with Nike, unprecedented in women's basketball, hasn't been showing off her wealth. Instead, she's focused on putting in the work this offseason after having one of the best rookie seasons ever. She's preparing for an even more remarkable sophomore year, recently hitting 25 three-pointers in a row during training. Caitlin followed up her impressive performance with a message to the rest of the league, showcasing her dedication to improvement and revealing her intense training routine. She said, "I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. There are so many areas I want to improve on, and I'm in the gym every single day." One player seems focused on her brand and image, almost to a narcissistic degree, while the other is a true basketball player, completely devoted to the love of the game. This is why it feels unfair to compare them. You'll see their differences even more clearly when you look at their performance on the court. I wasn't a big WNBA fan until Caitlin Clark burst onto the scene. After watching her highlights, I thought, wow, she's amazing. The moves she pulls off and her shooting are simply incredible. Watching her play inspires me to be a better player myself. It's pure art, or as Mark Jackson would say, poetry in motion. However, I did wonder why there was such a big fuss over her. No offense to Caitlin, but I see moves like hers every day in the NBA, from players like Curry, Lillard, and Kyrie. So why all the hype? But then I watched highlights of other WNBA players, and it started to make sense. Take Angel Reese, for example. When you watch her highlights, you can't help but think, really? This is who they're comparing to Caitlin Clark? Seriously, most of Angel's shots are right at the rim, with very little from beyond 5 feet. Many of her attempts look like she's just tossing up prayers to the basket.
Long pass, perfect to Reese.
You could watch her highlight reels all day, but it's really just the same thing repeated over and over.
Bird bomb, gut.
Now can you see why I compared Steph Curry to Andrew Drummond at the beginning? No offense to Andrew, he's a solid player. But honestly, when I first watched Angel's highlights, I thought, is this really all there is? Surely she must have made more shots from beyond 5 feet to be compared to someone like Caitlin Clark, who dribbles like a magician and shoots from Steph Curry range. I kid you not. I looked up her shooting stats, and they tell a different story. Over the entire season, she made just 3 three-pointers and only 17 shots from outside the paint in 34 games. That's an average of just 1 shot outside the paint every other game. In contrast, Caitlin's shooting chart shows she scores from all over the court. Here's where it gets even more ridiculous. Some people are actually comparing the rivalry between these two players to the legendary Bird and Magic rivalry from the 80s. Seriously? This might be the biggest case of basketball blasphemy I've ever heard. The only real connections between Angel and Caitlin seem to be their skin color, and that one game from the 2023 NCAA Finals where Angel's team beat Caitlin's, plus Angel's infamous trash-talking moment. Those are literally the only two things linking them to Bird and Magic.
I just hope y'all know the WNBA don't pay my bills at all. I don't even think that pays one of my bills. Literally. I'm trying to think of like my rent for where I stay at. Yo! I'm living beyond my means. It's like...
Let's be real. Caitlin Clark has an impressive array of moves, shooting range, and passing skills. You could compare her to Bird or Magic, minus their size. But honestly, what part of Bird or Magic's game resembles Angel Reese? Just look at how Bird and Magic played. Can you imagine someone saying Angel reminds them of either of those legends? Since the 2023 finals, it's been a one-sided battle with Caitlin consistently outplaying Angel. If you check the stats, Caitlin has dominated in nearly every category except rebounds. And when you look at team standings, the contrast becomes even clearer. The Chicago Sky, who finished second to last in 2023, dropped to dead last with Angel. Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever, who were last in 2023, have climbed to third place in 2024 with Caitlin leading the way. With evidence like this, can you see why I think putting Angel Reese in the same conversation as Caitlin Clark feels almost unfair? By 2025, comparing these two will seem even more ridiculous. Caitlin is on track to be the WNBA MVP next season. In her rookie year, she ranked fourth on the MVP ladder, averaging 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists. In her second season, those numbers could easily rise to 25 points, 6 rebounds, and 10 assists, likely with improved efficiency. If that sounds like a stretch, consider this. In her last 10 regular season games, she averaged 24 points, 9 assists, and 5.5 rebounds, shooting 37% from 3 and 92% from the free throw line. When you compare Caitlin's recent stats to past WNBA MVPs, her performance in those games could have secured the award, except for A'ja Wilson's incredible 2024 season. Caitlin's numbers are impressive compared to almost any MVP in history. For example, A'ja Wilson averaged around 27 points this past season, but the next highest scoring average by a previous MVP was just 23.9 by Maya Moore in 2014. And here's the kicker. No WNBA MVP has ever averaged more than 5 assists per game. The highest was 4.7 by Cynthia Cooper back in 1997. In the 2025 season, Caitlin Clark has a real chance to do something she's done multiple times in the NCAA. Lead the WNBA in both points and assists. That's unheard of, especially since no player in the NBA has done this since the three-point line was introduced, except for Nate Archibald with the Kings back in 1973. Caitlin has been making waves in the sports world, recently ranking as the 4th most marketable athlete, right behind LeBron James and even ahead of Messi. Yet, people want to compare Caitlin Clark to Angel Reese. They're putting the rising star, who could transform professional sports and redefine women's basketball, side by side with someone who hasn't achieved that level. And just so you know, the WNBA doesn't pay my bills at all. I'm living beyond my means, and that's just media nonsense. Speaking of disasters, let's talk about the recent WNBA championship game. Honestly, this was the only WNBA game I watched from start to finish, and I was stunned by how they managed to embarrass themselves on a global stage. If you're curious about what I mean, check out my video where I break it all down.